Joining me live now is KV Dhananjay. He's a well-known Supreme Court advocate and also an analyst, and he also belongs to Karnataka and is well versed with this issue at hand. Thank you very much, Mr. Dhananjay. Good to see you back here on 5 Live. The images we see coming in from Dharwad towards Belgavi are disconcerting to say the least, but they're not surprising because the Belgavi issue, as you well know and many of our viewers know, is an age-old one. There has been a trigger point this time as well. The context is familiar. Elections are coming. It's a highly emotive issue. But the issue currently is in Supreme Court. So the first question I want to ask you is, why, in your view, has this issue come up now, this particular time?
Well, I think it was. The Belgaum issue is always political. There's no other way to look at it. And there's an election, in Karnataka in the next few months. And I think that should certainly explain why this thing has been, as flared up just now. But having said that, the issue, as you rightly pointed out, is also before the Supreme Court. But the issue before the Supreme Court has gone in only in the last, I think, 14 or 15 years. Before that, there was no issue before the Supreme Court. Yet this always used to be periodic. Every 2-3 years, you have this come up, and then it will disappear in a month or two.
Yeah.
It's not, these issues don't linger on, and they always have a political objective. And I think that's a way to look at it. And the fact that it's before the Supreme Court also means that if the Supreme Court should say something, then if both the states are agreeable to what the Supreme Court would say, then I think the Supreme Court should be able to find a solution to this. But it so happens that the Supreme Court has done, in this case, considering the fact that matters like this are simply political, and there are no judicially manageable standards by which the court could intervene and then take, say that 1956 was when these states were carved out. In fact, in 1956, we did not have Maharashtra, we did not have Karnataka.
Yes.
We had Mysore and we had Bombay. Bombay became Maharashtra and Gujarat in 1960, and Mysore was transformed into Karnataka in 1973.
Yes.
So, we've seen this in this country. 1905, we had the partition of Bengal. 1911 was when Bihar was in fact, formed, and 1936 Orissa was in fact formed. So these have all been political, and it's never been possible for courts to intervene and then to set down judicially manageable standards. So with that having said, perhaps the Supreme Court can show a sense of leadership in this matter and then take up this issue for the final hearing and then, settle the issue once and for all, because it does no good to anybody.
Who benefits? It does no good to anybody. So, which raises the question that I'd like to ask. In your view, who benefits from this? If it keeps flaring up every now and then kind of dissipates after a few weeks, who's benefiting from it, Mr. Dhananjay?
Well, I think the Kannada groups, it's entirely possible that some of the Kannada groups
and the Marathi groups, I reckon, on the other side.
Yes. I mean, because I was talking about Karnataka.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it that, people on both sides, some of them genuinely believe that there is greater good in, like Marathi groups, I'm very sure, genuinely believe that, what they're fighting for is worth blood and sweat and all that. And there are similarly Kannada groups which believe in this issue. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
It's not the Kannada groups and it's not the Marathi groups that are a problem. The problem are the politicians in Maharashtra and Karnataka.
Yeah.
They use these groups, and then these groups don't realize that 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the line they are distant, and the problem is it's somebody is sponsoring them. Somebody is in fact encouraging these groups to go out and pelt stones.
In fact, Mr. Dhananjay, sorry to interrupt, but we just broke just a short while ago. Sharad Pawar at a press conference issuing what sounds very much like an ultimatum. I won't say threat. He's a senior politician, but he said something in Marathi which basically translated as, if this goes in the wrong direction, then, anything that happens will be the responsibility of, Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai. That is pretty inflammatory speech at a time like this.
That's true. And I think both sides, if somebody wants to point out blame here, then I think the blame will equally be shared by both the sides.
Right.
It's not like 1% more here or there. But having said, Mr. Sharad Pawar, being an elderly statesman, should not have done what he did, because now that he has done what he has done, there will be competitive pressure within the state of Karnataka to act likewise.
Yeah.
And this is going to go nowhere. But it's a fact that, there is law and order disturbance there. And when that happens, people will not be able to go about their daily lives. Children will not be able to attend their schools and colleges. And, banks would not be able to function. So someone needing, immediate money for a surgery won't be able to accomplish that. So there is there is a real loss
Yeah.
to people living in that region. And I think that's what we should really be worried about. It's not just about talk.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the time the politicians talk about these things, there is a damage that, we tend to see there.
And this is also not the first time that the issue has flared up before an election in Karnataka. I remember, the Belgavi issue at least on two other occasions, on two previous Karnataka elections that I've covered personally at least, perhaps even before that, where the Belgavi issue has, emerged and bubbled up to the surface just before the election. Do you see anything different about it this time, or do you think it's that same cycle of the issue being revived, just weeks before another election cycle?
Well, I think this time it's going to last a bit longer.
Right.
It's not going to die down next week. It looks like because people have now been talking about the schedule. They've been scheduling this or that 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the line. I think the issue will continue to fester. And also, the matter is before the Supreme Court. And by the way, the Supreme Court, in this case, apart from issuing notice, there has been no substantive hearing before the Supreme Court. This might be for good because both sides seem to say that their solution lies in the Supreme Court. And, again, people could accuse me of bias because I happen to be from the state of Karnataka. But it's my honest belief that the Supreme Court would not be able to interfere in a matter of this nature because matters concerning, there have been similar cases before the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Asking the court to intervene and then say that the border of a state should in fact be modified to encompass territories in another state. So the courts have always said that, look, this is not a matter where courts could intervene. And so it's my honest belief that the Supreme Court would not be able to do anything. And the fact that the possibility that the Supreme Court would say that there is nothing that they can do, perhaps, could put an end to it. But again, the more desperate politicians are for votes, and I do not know whether this actually gets them votes, and perhaps it's time for some university professors to come forward and find out if these kind of disturbances help anybody politically, because it's a belief that it helps them. Perhaps we might need some kind of a study, and if the study would say that these things don't really help anybody politically,
I hope that happens,
then it's
KV Dhananjay, thank you very much. This was very important and useful insight from you, because like so many other things in our country as well, resolving a situation, a dispute, requires political will and sort of human will on both sides. But if there is a belief on either side that there are gains to be made by keeping the dispute alive, then it's almost impossible that that dispute will ever be resolved, whether it is at the High Court level or the Supreme Court level or any other level beyond that. Thank you very much, KV Dhananjay. Pleasure to have you here on this show on this extremely important issue.